Hi, I'm Jake, 32, and last month my life blew up when my sister's $40,000 wedding imploded like a wet cardboard cake stand. Because I finally said no. Let me tell you how we got there. I found out I wasn't invited to my own sister's wedding from Instagram. Not even a close friend story, just a public post with a golden invitation card resting on satin, the caption all sunshine and exclamation points. So excited to celebrate with all my loved ones! All her loved ones. Except me. At first I thought, nah, must be a mistake. I'd spent the last 6 months bankrolling this wedding. Paid the venue deposit when she and her fiancé were broke. Floated the catering advance when our parents needed time to think. Even chipped in for her wedding dress. A dress I hadn't seen. A fitting I hadn't been invited to. But I still held out hope. Maybe she just hadn't gotten to my invite yet. Maybe mine got lost in the mail. So I sent her a message. Hey, saw your post. Didn't get my invite, did it go missing? Waited. Nothing. An hour passed. Then 2. At 10:34 p.m., I finally got a response. Hey. I was going to talk to you about this. I hope you understand, but we had to make some tough choices with the guest list. It's a very curated event, you know? We had to keep it elegant. No offense, but you don't really fit the vibe. I know you'll be happy for me from afar, though. Love you. Curated. Didn't fit the vibe. Happy from afar. I read it 3 times before I realized I hadn't been forgotten. I'd been filtered out like a spam email in a couture inbox. And I knew why. I wasn't like her friends. I didn't work in a high-rise or wear designer clothes. I didn't talk about IPOs over Eggs Benedict or pose in matching outfits on wine tours. I ran an auto shop. A luxury one, sure. I made good money. But to my sister, and honestly, most of my family, I was the guy with grease under his nails. The one who showed up to family dinners in boots and a hoodie smelling like brake fluid. To them, I wasn't successful. I was tolerated. Until I made things awkward. But that didn't stop them from taking my money. Every time she ran into a budget wall, there I was. And now? I didn't fit the vibe. You know what I did next? I slept terribly. Then I drove to my parents' place unannounced and walked in on a conversation I was never meant to hear. My mom said, I just don't want him embarrassing us. My sister? He doesn't belong at a sophisticated event. And my dad, God bless him, muttered, he's family. Like it was a technicality. I stepped into the kitchen, and everything went still. So that's how you see me? I said. No one denied it. And just like that, I knew what I had to do. She didn't want me at her wedding? Fine. But she wouldn't get a dime more from me. Not for the cake. Not for the flowers. Not for the dream. She curated me out? Let's see how the vibe holds without my money. The moment I said no, really said no, you'd think I declared war. It started small. A text from my sister. Don't make this a big deal, okay? You know I love you. Hope you can still help with the final payment for the cake. It's due Friday. XO. The cake. She actually thought I was still going to pay for the cake after telling me I didn't fit the vibe. I laughed. Out loud. Alone in my truck. I had to pull over, I was laughing so hard. The delusion. So I texted her back. Sorry, wouldn't want to embarrass you by being associated with your wedding. I'm sure you'll figure it out. Good luck. 5 minutes later, call. I ignored it. Then another. Then my mom. Then my dad. By nightfall, I had 12 missed calls and 9 unread texts. The next morning, they escalated. Mom. Sweetheart, don't be spiteful. It's just a misunderstanding. Let's talk. Dad. We raised you better than this. My sister. You can't just back out. The cake is already ordered. Not one of them said I'm sorry. Not one even tried. They just expected me to go along like I always had. So I called her. Finally. She huffed as she picked up. Listen, I don't know what's gotten into you, but this is ridiculous. You already agreed to pay. I changed my mind. I cut in. Silence. What? I changed my mind. I repeated clear and slow. I'm not paying another dime. She inhaled sharply. You're seriously going to betray me like this? After everything I've done? Everything you've done? I said, raising an eyebrow. You mean like using me for 6 months and then pretending I don't exist because I'm not polished enough for your fancy little guest list? Oh my God! She groaned. It's not like that. You're being dramatic. It was about aesthetics, Jake. You don't exactly blend. She really said blend. Like I was some color that clashed with her Pinterest board. You mean I don't look good in your curated Instagram photos? I snapped. But my money! That was aesthetically pleasing enough? You have plenty of money, she shot back. You wouldn't even miss it. There it was. Not gratitude. Not even guilt. Just the assumption that I'd keep footing the bill, because I could. I do have money, I said. And not a single cent more is going to you. Wait, Jake, don't. I hung up. 2 days passed. The silence was deafening. Not because I missed them, but because I knew what it meant. They weren't ignoring me out of anger. They were scrambling. Trying to replace the $17,000 hole I had just left in their wedding budget. And then, day 3, right before lunch, my mom walked into my shop. No call. No warning. Just walked in like she had stock in the place. She looked around like she just stepped into a foreign country. A Porsche 911 Turbo was up on the lift. My guys were working efficiently, laughing, handling tools she probably couldn't even name. I wiped my hands and met her at the counter. Something wrong? We need to talk, she said tightly. I led her into the office. She sat across from me, legs crossed, purse in her lap like she was at a bank applying for a loan she didn't believe she needed to repay. Your sister's in trouble, she said finally. I raised an eyebrow. Oh? You know. Nope, I said. But I have a feeling you're going to tell me. She sighed like she was the victim. The bakery won't release the cake unless they get the final payment. The venue says they'll cancel if they don't get the balance by Friday. The florist is threatening to pull out. And she can't pay. My mom snapped. Not without your help. That's unfortunate, I said, crossing my arms. You have the money. I do, I said. And I'm not spending a cent of it on a wedding I wasn't invited to. You agreed, she hissed. And she disinvited me, I said flatly. So the deal's off. She clenched her jaw. You'll regret this. I smiled. Maybe. But I doubt it. And that's when I knew I wasn't just standing up for myself. I was pulling the curtain back on years of being treated like I was disposable. She walked out without another word. And I leaned back in my chair, finally feeling like I was in control of my own story. The morning of the wedding started with a text from my cousin. Bro. You're not gonna believe this. I was sipping coffee in my garage's office, feet up, feeling lighter than I had in months. My phone buzzed again. The venue just kicked them out. I blinked. Then, slowly, a smile crept onto my face. They locked the doors. Guests are literally standing outside in suits and heels. Whole thing's falling apart. She's losing it. I chuckled, then laughed, then full-on wheezed until Pete, my head mechanic, stuck his head in and asked if I was dying. Nope. Just karma, finally clocking in. Turns out my sister had gambled. Hard. She assumed that, like always, I'd cave at the last minute and bail her out. So she kept booking. Cake. Venue. Florist. DJ. Photographer. All of it. And never once thought to pay in full. She was betting on the family ATM. Too bad the ATM was closed for good. The venue had warned her 3 times, apparently. Final payment or no event. She ghosted them, thinking she could stall until the morning of. The manager wasn't playing games. While guests were still arriving, staff literally locked the main entrance and refused to open it. I saw the photos later. Confused relatives standing in the parking lot in cocktail dresses and shiny loafers. A groomsman trying to argue with a clipboard-wielding planner. My sister in full makeup and a $6,000 dress, mascara streaking down her face as she screamed into her phone. At 1:15 p.m., my phone buzzed. Sister calling. I picked up. What? I said flatly. Are you happy now? She screamed so loud I had to hold the phone away from my ear. I leaned back in my chair, amused. About what? You know exactly what, she shrieked. The wedding is ruined. Oh? I said. Didn't have enough money? You knew we didn't, she cried. You were supposed to help. I let out a slow breath through my nose. No. You assumed I would. There was a long pause. When she spoke again, her voice was quieter, shaking. You let me fail. I sat up. That hit different. No, I said. You failed. I just stopped saving you. She went quiet again. Then, I don't understand, she whispered. Why couldn't you just help? After everything we've been through? After everything I've done? I stared at the wall for a second. Everything she's done. Like what? Excluding me? Mocking me behind my back? Treating me like a debit card with bad social skills? You mean like using me for money and then cutting me out of the wedding? That everything? I didn't mean it like that, she mumbled. You never do, I said. That's the problem. Another long silence. So this is it? She asked finally. You're just walking away? I exhaled, slow. No. I already walked away. You just didn't notice until today. And I hung up. The wedding was held, technically, in our aunt's backyard. No chandeliers. No string quartet. No $5,000 cake or champagne fountain. Just fold-out chairs, slapped-together decorations, and a Bluetooth speaker hooked up to someone's iPhone. I didn't go, obviously. But I heard she cried through most of it. Not out of joy. Out of sheer humiliation. For once, the show wasn't picture perfect. The vibe had cracked, and without her, embarrassing, brother there to fund it all, there was no one left to polish the pieces. And you know what? I didn't feel bad. Not one bit. The Monday after the wedding, my parents showed up at my shop. Both of them. They didn't call ahead. Didn't text. Just rolled into the lot like a couple of repo men, my mom marching in first, purse swinging like a wrecking ball of maternal disappointment. My dad trailed behind, doing that weird lip-pressed thing he always did when he was gearing up to say something he didn't believe in. I didn't get up. Just looked up from my clipboard and said, Let me guess. You're here about the wedding. You humiliated your sister. My mom snapped, skipping the warm-up. In front of the entire family. I blinked. Pretty sure she managed that all on her own. My dad cleared his throat. She was counting on you. No, I said, standing up. She was using me. There's a difference. My mom scoffed. This grudge of yours is petty, Jake. You let your own sister's wedding fall apart over what? Some bruised ego. Ego? I repeated, letting out a low laugh. You think this is about ego? You're acting like a child. She fired back. I stared at her for a second. Then walked over to the door, opened it, and gestured politely. Get out. That stunned them. For a second, no one moved. I'm serious, I said. Get out of my business. This is where I work, where I pay the bills, where I've built something from the ground up. Something none of you gave a damn about until it stopped working in your favor. My mom's face went red. My dad stepped forward. Son, I'm not your son when you're here for her, I said calmly but firmly. When she needed money, you came to me. But when she excluded me? Belittled me? Mocked my job? None of you said a damn thing. You're twisting this. My mom snapped. You're making yourself the victim. No, I said, eyes locked on hers. I'm just finally setting the boundary you never thought I would. Another silence. Then, in a lower voice, my dad asked, What do you want from us, Jake? I don't want anything, I said. That's the whole point. They stared at me, blinking, like I just told them I'd joined a cult. You want to keep treating me like I don't belong? Fine. I'm done pretending I do. Then I stepped back, still holding the door. They left. No apology. No real acknowledgement. Just that brittle, offended silence of people who couldn't believe they'd finally been cut off. That night I got a text from my sister. I hope you're happy. I hope this was worth it. I didn't reply. Because it was. Not because I wanted her to suffer. but because I finally realized their version of family only worked if I kept losing. And I wasn't going to play that game anymore. It was about a month later when the door to my shop opened, and in walked my cousin Ava. Now, Ava's the type who normally avoids family drama like it's a live wire in a kiddie pool. She's Switzerland with a nose ring. Neutral, unbothered, and usually sipping oat milk lattes in peace. So when I saw her standing there in my waiting room, hands in the pockets of a vintage bomber jacket, I was honestly surprised. "Ava?" I called from the office. "Lose a bet?" She smirked and walked in. "Needed an oil change. Also, figured I'd see how you're doing. You know. After the explosion." I leaned back in my chair. "Still standing. Still greasy. Still uninvited." She let out a short laugh. "Yeah. That wedding was something. So I heard." She sat across from me, glanced around, then leaned in slightly. "Can I tell you something without you thinking I'm just here to stir the pot?" "Sure." She took a breath. "Your sister's pissed. Like still. But also embarrassed. Deeply." I raised an eyebrow. "Embarrassed enough to apologize?" "No," she said quickly. "But she's been rewriting the narrative. Telling people you bailed last minute for no reason. That you were unstable or going through some kind of breakdown." I blinked. "Seriously?" Ava nodded. "She even told her coworkers you were upset about not being in the photos. Like, emotionally fragile about not wearing a tux." I laughed once. "Wow. That's rich. She's doubling down, Jake. Pretending she's the victim. But the people who know what happened, they're not buying it." I studied her face. "So why are you really here?" She hesitated. "Because I think you need to know. Not everyone bought into her story. A lot of us didn't even know you weren't invited until the day of." "Really? I assumed you'd be there. You were funding half the wedding. When I found out what she did, I was honestly." She paused. "It was gross." I nodded slowly. "So what now?" Ava shrugged. "I don't know. But people are starting to talk. Not gossip, like really talk. About how messed up it was. About how you finally said no." I tilted my head. "And what are you saying?" She looked me straight in the eye. "That it was about damn time." There was something in her tone, not pity, not drama. Just respect. "Anyway." She stood, brushing off her jacket. "I'll leave you to it. Oh, and you do still owe me an oil change. I brought snacks." She tossed a bag of sour gummy worms onto my desk and walked out to her car. And I sat there, staring at the door, realizing something strange. For the first time in my life, someone from the family had stood on my side. Not to guilt trip, just to say, "I see you." It didn't erase the damage. But it reminded me I wasn't crazy for drawing the line. Maybe I had lost a sister that day. But I gained something else: dignity. Boundaries. And maybe a few unexpected allies. It's been a year now. A full year since the wedding that wasn't, since the golden invitations and the "you don't fit the vibe" text, since the venue locked its doors and my sister stood crying in a stranger's backyard with wilted flowers and a Bluetooth speaker that kept disconnecting. You'd think the dust would have settled by now. That time would have patched things up, smoothed it over with a few forced holidays or awkward birthday cards. But nah. What happened that day didn't just snap a thread, it tore the whole tapestry. And you know what? I'm not sorry. My parents still speak to me, sort of. Cautiously. Like they're walking on glass, half afraid I'll remind them I don't owe them anything anymore. We've done the dance a few times, tense dinners, polite small talk, a few attempts at "can't we just move on?" that I shut down with a raised eyebrow and a "depends, have you changed?" Spoiler, they haven't. As for my sister? Radio silence. She never apologized. Not once. Not even a fake one. But she also never asked for money again. Not for her birthday, not for unexpected vet bills. Not for her honeymoon trip to Bali she had to cancel when the refunds didn't quite cover the new plan. I considered that a win. Turns out when you remove the checkbook, people suddenly find their own wallets. Amazing how that works. And me? Still running my business. Still doing great. Hired 2 more mechanics. Moved into a bigger location. Finally bought that vintage Ducati I've had my eye on since high school. I take weekends off now. I sleep better. I don't spend my nights wondering if I'm enough for people who only see value in dollar signs and dress codes. And I learned something. Family isn't about blood. It's about respect. About showing up for each other, not just when it's convenient, not just when it looks good in photos, but always. Especially when it's messy. Especially when it's real. You can love people and still walk away. You can forgive and still say, never again. Because respect isn't earned with spreadsheets or speeches. It's earned in silence, in the moment you realize you don't owe anyone the pieces of yourself they never appreciated to begin with. So no, I don't regret skipping the wedding. I regret every time I said yes when I should have said no. But I don't do that anymore. Not for cake. Not for curated vibes. Not for anyone. And that's the happiest ending I could have given myself.